It's Wednesday, December the 4th. Good morning and welcome to the Perfect Morning Starter right here on Channels Television. I am Bukola Koka and I'm here, blessed, always among men. Hi, guys.
Yes, good morning and welcome to the program. Yes.
I got the date, Jeffrey.
Today is 4th, yeah.
Yeah, I got it.
I can't forget because my birthday is 4th, so I can't forget.
A sense of accomplishment right now.
So how many days is it now to Christmas? That's what I'm interested in.
21 days.
21 days. Yeah. So you two are counting?
Naturally. I think it's something we picked up from childhood. It's just natural. Once it's September, you start counting down.
Really?
Yeah, so I've been doing that instinctively. It just happens.
Oh, really? Yes, nice.
Carter must have had a wonderful Christmas for him to have been counting from September. So that means he had the full complement of every Christmas while he was growing up. Thanks to Mommy and Daddy Okikiolu. Jeffrey, we were having a conversation.
I'll take that.
We were having a conversation 2 days ago or so about the price of commodities, particularly as we approach Christmas. And, you know, a check on bags of rice now and turkey and, you know, all the likes. Turkey. You know, reflects that the prices are going up for one reason that I do not understand, because inflation seems to have moderated. It's still excessive, but for a reason that I do not understand. So, Jeffrey, what happens when we're buying turkey for 50,000 naira?
It's not the will of God.
It's not the.
Did you hear that?
So that's a new line.
Yeah, no, and so the line is simple. I have to teach Bukola that line for your mental health. So anything that is out of your pay grade or excessively too expensive, but you have the interest of acquiring, is not the will of God. So I want to buy a phone and I like it. Oh, they just tell me the price, and I said, no, this is not the will of God.
And I think that's a brilliant way to look at it.
Just deflect it.
The price is 105,000.
But you can't wheel that away.
If you didn't know.
So what you can do is buy
half.
Buy it in bits rather than buy the whole bag. Naturally, if something is beyond you, if something is beyond you, don't try to reach it. Really, just stay in your zone. But it speaks to the issues, Bukola. Clearly, we need to begin to find a way to make Christmas at least look good for people, because with the prices, I think it's more than 50,000 naira, Bukola. Turkey, as the people said, is more than 50,000.
Turkey. It's turkey.
Okay.
Because we went to school.
All right.
But here we call it turkey.
Turkey. Does that change anything?
No, at least. It makes it relatable to all of us.
And it helps your mental health, right? You know, even though you're unable to buy it, you can call the name of the animal anyhow. Turkey.
Just look for a way that turkey will not be looking ugly. I didn't know this thing has been ugly like this. Right.
I like that way of looking at it.
How come I've been eating this ugly thing? Maybe chicken is nicer.
You know, in some parts of the world.
You have to look for a way, man.
Absolutely. Yeah. Thanksgiving. At least the US was how many days ago, and you should see how much they've invested in that economy, such that Turkey, well, it will be Turkey there. It's not what it is here, and it's a no-brainer. We spoke to our correspondent in Benue yesterday, and you see people who are meant to be in farms in IDP camps instead. So these things naturally add up. It's a no-brainer. These things have been happening. They've been there for 7 years or 5 years?
Since 2019.
So imagine 5 years, that has added up. So it's a no-brainer. If we want to have cheaper food, then we need to invest in farming, agriculture. And I'm talking young people, older generation, government is something we need to do as a matter of urgency. But that's not all we have on the show this morning, guys.
Absolutely. One of the big things we're going to start with on the program today is the big hot topic, which has to do with that massive recovery by the Efcc. Efcc calls it the largest or single asset recovery by the Commission. 753 duplexes seized and forfeited by the Efcc. Now it belongs to the federal government. Maybe if you want to buy something, there's a shop open now. I don't know what it is.
You know, I keep looking at
the scale of, I don't know.
That massive expanse of property, and it's mind-boggling. I'm trying to wrap my head around it, that one individual, you know, could have his name on the title deed of this entire mass of property.
Or an organized company.
Where, you know, there's a huge, high degree of poverty in the land. Yesterday Bishop Kuka said something about Nigerians wiping their faces with saliva, where we have an abundance of, a sea in the country. It's a lot, for us to reflect on. But that's not all that we have for you today. We'll also be bringing you that conversation that we missed out on yesterday. We'll be talking with Oba Adedapo Tejushu, the Oshile of Okiono, as we look at the life and times of one monarch, that has defied the odds to have and achieve what many describe as an illustrious reign. So stick around for that big conversation this morning.
And there's this, ugly trend of either the abduction of ladies, what have you, and we'll look at the role of social media in that one. And we're talking about days of activism, right? So today on the show, we're talking about the safety of our women, our girls. I mean, they should not be worried about attending parties, for example, or just, going out at night. We need to ensure the environment is safer for our women, and we'll take a look at that.
Absolutely, but that's not all. We'll be having a chat with Shua. She is a singer, and she will be bringing us up to speed with what she's up to at the moment. So there she is, but the conversation will hold right here in our Lagos studios. Join us as we explore her journey. Her name, Shua. And now may not be all Kaide, so we call it the Hand of Fellowship. That's because who brought that word? Is it Kaide?
No, this one is Kaide.
Okay,
I hold no copyright.
So I threw it to you, so.
Yeah.
Okay, the Hand of Fellowship, hashtag CTV Morning Brief, as you can see there. Or guess what? You can just head over to WhatsApp right now and let us know your thoughts about some of the issues trending. The arrest of activist and lawyer Dele Farotimi, that is the biggest trend right now. Let's know what you think about it. That is a number to send us a message on, not call, not audio or video call, just messages. And if you've got videos, perhaps something happening around you, send it our way. We'll ensure that we'll do our due diligence and share it with the world.
And we'll take a quick break now. When we come back, okay, Bukola is talking, so she will continue to talk. On the program.
That's smart, Jeffrey.
Yeah, I know. We'll take our top stories and bring you up to speed what you've been saying on next. Join us again.
Top on the brief this morning is a confirmation of a nomination of Lieutenant General Olufemi Oloyede for appointment as Chief of Army Staff by the Senate. And the confirmation followed the consideration of reports by the Chairman of the Senate Committee on Army, Senator Yaradua Abdulaziz Musa. Well, the committee's recommendations were unanimously adopted by the upper chamber.
And that's not all. Staying with the upper legislative chamber, the Senate has passed the 2024 to 26 medium-term expenditure framework and fiscal strategy paper for the implementation by the federal government. The passage followed the presentation of a report by the chairman of the Joint Committees on Finance and National Planning and Economic Affairs, Senator Sani Musa. The Senate also tasked its committees on finance and petroleum, as well as gas, to investigate allegations of withheld funds by the NNPCL, including 8.48 trillion naira in petrol subsidies and $2 billion in unpaid taxes.
And also business news, the National Pension Commission has announced that low-earning pensioners are now permitted to withdraw their total retirement savings en bloc or continue to receive their monthly pension pending the approval of a minimum pension guarantee. A memo signed by the head of Surveillance Department of PENCOM, identified as A.M. Salim, said the development followed the new Section 41G of the revised regulation on the administration of retirement and terminal benefits, in line with the new minimum wage of 70,000 naira.
On the international scene, a Vietnamese court has upheld the death penalty for 68-year-old property developer Truong My Lan in a multi-billion-dollar fraud case. The court in Ho Chi Minh City determined that there was no basis to reduce the death sentence for Truong My Lan. She was convicted earlier in the year of embezzling money from Saigon Commercial Bank and condemned to die for fraud totaling $27 billion.
And British heavyweight boxer Daniel Dubois will defend his IBF world title against Joseph Parker in Saudi Arabia on February the 22nd. But the 27-year-old returns to the ring in Riyadh after making a spectacular first defense of his IBF belt against Anthony Joshua. Dubois knocked out his British rival inside 5 rounds at Wembley Stadium in September.
And let's talk to entertainment now, as Nigerian stars Rema Thames and Iris Star made the list of Rolling Stone's top 100 albums released in 2024. Rema's sophomore album, Haze, is ranked 11th. Thames' debut album, Born in the Wild, was in at number 37, while Iris Star's The Year I Turned 21 takes 53rd spot.
Well, so there you have it. Top stories making the rounds at this hour. But what have you been saying about the trending issues? Let's get right into it. We're starting off with the very first issue, and that concerns the arrest of activist and lawyer Dele Farotimi. And that has been on the news for almost a day now. And that is where we're getting started right now. And well, senior advocate of Nigeria, Femi Falana, has also been speaking, saying that Dele Farotimi arrested over alleged criminal libel. So what have you been saying? We'll start off with Omega XD, who says, "Dear Nigerians, continue to speak out against all forms of injustice to yourselves and others." So you might wonder what context this is, perhaps speaking about what we've known Dele Farotimi for, saying, do not let this stop you. But then where do you draw the line is usually the question. But clearly, a lot of people are saying this was not done in the right way and he should be released, including senior advocate Femi Falana.
And there seems to also be a disagreement about why exactly he was, or the details around why he was arrested, for criminal libel, allegedly. And, some Nigerians are talking about it. Let's see what Temitayo Ponle is saying. And they say, defaming people is wrong on all sides. And please note, it's Afe Babalola and not Tony Elumelu. In bracket, we need to get our facts right always. This man is wrong, and we shouldn't just feel like defaming people should be a normal thing. And for the NBA and senior advocate of Nigeria and human rights lawyer, Mr. Femi Falana, they have intervened on this matter, saying that criminal libel is no longer against the law in Lagos, and they quoted a certain case from about 2011 where that has been annulled as being against the law in Lagos and in Edo State. So we'll see how that plays out. But one question that one might ask is, for the legal department of most police stations, are the officials there quite acquainted with the law if these kinds of interventions are coming through, about the arrest of cases? And we could cite so many other cases of arrest, where there seems to be a conflict with the law in terms of the understanding of the legal department of the police. Mukai, do you have the next one?
Well, this user, the case has not gone to court yet, so we can't tell if he's wrong or not. We're not the court. This next user is Ekiti Princess, saying this is false. Uncle Dele Farotimi was not arrested due to Tony Elumelu or UBA. The arrest was initiated by Chief Afe Babalola, who filed a defamation petition with the Ekiti State Police Command. But a lot of people are attributing Tony Elumelu to this as well, because he had put out a statement, that's Dele Farotimi. And in, I think, the third paragraph of the statement, the second paragraph, he mentioned that he was presented with a petition written by a lawyer on behalf of Mr. Tony Elumelu, accusing him of defamation. I think that was, November the 13th. So that's how the name of billionaire Tony Elumelu came into the mix. But this case, for which he was arrested, appears to be because of a legal luminary, Chief Afe Babalola. But still, lots of facts are not clear just yet. So let's just wait and ensure that the right thing is done by the police, especially Bukola.
And this next one is by V. I'll just go with V. And V says, I'm deeply disturbed by the Nigerian state. I'm deeply disturbed that our nation's free thinkers are picked up and harassed every other day like this. I'm deeply disturbed by what Nigeria has become.
It was Fisai Sheyombo by the army, the military some days ago, and now Dele Farotimi by the police. We'll keep tabs on that, definitely, and bring you all of the updates as soon as they come in, and reiterate that the right thing must be done according to law in this case. But let's talk about the tax reforms, which, of course, has generated lots of controversy, and it looks like it's not over just yet. But we have the presidential candidate of the Labour Party in the 2023 election, Mr. Peter Obi, speaking about this, and he's asking the federal government not to rush and allow public debate. And I imagine that's what the public hearing would be for. Don't forget, the bill has been passed to committees, from there to public hearing. So I think we're moving towards that yet again. But take a look at the first comment from Joyce. That's Joyce with a lot of figures, saying, we must pass the reform bill. Nigeria must move forward. That's the users thinking right now. We must go ahead with this.
Well, consultations are not out of the place, and I believe that was the position of the Economic Council when they requested, that it be stepped down for further consultation, particularly amongst governors. So it could not be out of place for further consultations to be done. And Channels Television has rightly intervened with that town hall, that brought about a lot of education about the tax reform bills. But it seems as if the reservations being expressed, particularly from different regions of the country, are still coming through. So we just may need to spend more time in debating the bill. Grand, with just one number, says that's how it should be. Allow for extensive and exhaustive discussion around the subject matter on both merit and demerits. Make it easy for the public to easily buy into the policy without issues.
There you go. The next user is IBK John. IBK John says, I watched a proceeding on TV first and second reading. The Deputy Senate President presided the meeting. Guess what? It's a clue. Once it's an executive bill, it needs a lot of hands on deck. It's a bit tricky understanding what IBK is trying to say here. But basically, it needs a lot of hands on deck. That's what the user is saying, Bukola.
Well, let's make progress. Innocent Onwilie says, public debate that will last... Well, we get you. We get the humor part. That will last 20 years or more. Is this how he would have developed Nigeria from consumption to production in 8 years? That comes with a lot of skepticism and sarcasm in the mix as well. So it doesn't have to take 8 years. It doesn't have to take 20 years. But the important thing is that the work should be done in the process of consultation. And when implementation is done, it should be seen to be transparent as much as possible. And should, at the end of the day, encourage production, which is the ultimate. The most important part of this conversation about the tax reform bills for, other states of the Federation to encourage industrialization, such that there can be more opportunities, contained therein in that new derivation formula for distribution. And, more states can take more of the measure that is coming to them.
Well, the next user is, in fact, named Much More. Still just keen into what you're talking about, Much More Grace. And it's just basically saying if Nigeria wants tax reform, Nigeria should first of all open up other regions like Lagos. All Nigeria seaports and airports must have equal status as Lagos. So if you say all regions must be opened up, not all regions have water bodies, for example. So would we channel the water to those states or those regions? I'm not sure. But it goes on to say you don't keep everything in Lagos and expect others to accept tax control. This is definitely does not have any. I think it's important to read the bills first, if you have time, or if you have some AI tool, ask it to summarize the bill for you. But I advise that we all read that bill as much as we can. It's not too much. Just see it as a novel, a thriller that you're reading, before we then begin to make comments. Because a lot of people are making comments of other people's comments. And those people that they're relying on are probably not read the bill anyway. So it's just a lot of perhaps ignorance going around. So let us read the bill and ensure that we speak from informed positions. I think that would really help this.
Yeah. Do we have more time for more of the reviews?
I think we can take a pause on that.
Okay.
Don't forget, keep it coming, hashtag CTV Morning Brief, or you could just do it on WhatsApp. Let us know what you think. We're starting off with a very important conversation this morning, Bukola.
Yeah, and that would be, that big cache of property, that seizure made by the EFCC. We're going to piggyback on it and take views extensively from stakeholders who are looking into that anti-corruption space to see how effective it is, to see how indeed balanced it is, not just covering what many would see as the cybercrime space, the Yahoo space, but how democratic is it to cover politically exposed persons. So it's an important conversation that we're having this morning.
And we're joining Jeffrey. So,
So, Jeffrey, what do you have for us?
Yeah, we're waiting for you guys to come through so that we get our conversation started. A lot of people are wondering what this is really all about. As far as this is concerned, but the number is just mind-boggling. 150,000 square meters, I guess so. But what is important to people is the 753 duplexes that were seized by the EFCC. And there are some legalese around it. The most important thing now is that property belongs to the government. Whatever the government wants to do with it is different. It's a different kettle of fish. So that's why I want to have this conversation with everybody involved as far as this is concerned. We're going to be joined on the program by 3 individuals, but let's say 2 are available to talk to us at the moment. A national inspirator, trainer, Action Aid Nigeria. Joining us from our Abuja studio is Josephine Adoku, as well as Olufolayan Awoyemi, legal practitioner at Justice Development and Peace Commission, joining us from Ibadan. Thank you so much for coming on the program.
Thank you. You're welcome. Good morning, Nigerians.
Seizure, or not seizure now, forfeiture that we've, EFCC calls it the single largest asset recovery by the Commission. 753 duplexes. Although they did not disclose the name, but we've seen documents to the effect that is related to an individual and all of that. Maybe your first impression when you saw this scale of recovery by the government. Josephine?
Thank you so much, and it's so lovely to be here. Cases of corruption is one that's it's very passionate to me, because we see the ills that happens, and then of course our justice system. But however, the recent forfeiture of the property that was seized by the EFCC, I think, is one of hope, and I think it's a commendable step by the EFCC. The fact that they have even decided to bring this to the public domain is commendable in the first place. However, when I was following the case, I would expect that at some point I was eager to see the name of this person, who did this thing. When I read through that case, I think the most I saw was the property address and all of that. So yeah, as much as I commend the EFCC, for their efforts in fighting corruption, I still think a lot of work needs to be done in properly ensuring that the accountability process is transparent enough to give us the opportunity to track cases, so that, in future times we look back and we are able to reference, situations like this to say, when so-so person did something like this, they were penalized and this was the punishment, and all of that. And, I think in Africa, it's been a trend where people just easily get away with corruption. The case of Jacob Zuma of South Africa, we saw how he was charged with only 15 months. Even though the allegation was that he was getting kickbacks from arms deal, one would think that a crime of such magnitude, would expect more. And then there's also the case of Prince Talon of Benin, who was also charged, for the cotton subsidy embezzlement, fraud. And yet, he was charged in absentia for 20 years. And this person later came back to the country to become a president. I do think that this goes to show, our value system in Africa in general. And when you look at other crimes, for instance, the recent sentence of the China, I think the China Prime Minister also of tobacco, right? There are States of China Tobacco Administration, who was also sentenced to death and was given 2 years reprieve. For me, that shows that that is a country where it is clear that corruption is unacceptable and will not be tolerated. Bringing it back to Nigeria, I do think that as much as they are taking the step to fight corruption, we are hopeful that the process will be truly accountable, will be transparent, and then we are able to see what kinds of punishments are being, meted out on people. We also have the case of Yaya Bello. And when I want to talk about Yaya Bello, I would like to link it with the disparity in our justice system. You see a case where when it is the young people, the kinds of punishment that they get is sometimes not commensurate to that of the powerful, the people in power. And then when it is those in power, you see that they are free and then they get away with some of these things. So for me, I do think that if Yaya Bello is still working very free, then it shows a lot about our justice system. EFCC had claimed earlier that Yaya Bello is in hiding, and to further prove EFCC wrong, Yaya Bello did not just, come to say, I am not hiding. He went as far as walking past the office of the EFCC, making a video and pictures and posted online to say, I am not hiding.
All right, Josephine, if I'm important,
this is somebody
just
that
for a
has
moment.
been accused of coughing out 80 billion
if you can hear me, Josephine,
from Kogi State coffers.
All right, just for the record, the issue of Yaya Bello is still a subject of adjudication, but I'm sure people understand the premise, given the drama that greeted his eventual arrest and prosecution. Let me take you to Awoyemi on this particular one. EFCC is saying it is action in rem instead of action in personam. What they are saying in legalese is simply to say we're going after the property, we're not going after the person or entity. But Nigerians are feeling like, do you also belong to that school of thought that believes that 753 duplexes, somebody, according to EFCC, got it from illicit fund or unlawful means, and then we don't have a name to that effect? Do you feel that EFCC should do more beyond this legalese to tell us who exactly this belongs to?
All right. Good morning, Nigerians, and thank you for having me. Well, when I saw the news over the week, my first thought about that is, wow, okay, they brought out another news for us to live with as Nigerians. But as a lawyer, one of my thoughts is that what they did they follow the due process of law? What does the law say about the act of the EFCC? Did they do anything outside the law? And for forfeiture, the law, according to the offense that they press statement, is the Advanced Fee Fraud Act 2006. And Section 17 of the Act speaks basically about this issue of forfeiture. And of course, the Act says that where any property has come into the possession of any officer of the Commission as unclaimed property, or any accused person's property is found by any officer of the Commission to be of any person, body, corporate organization, and it goes on and on like that. Now, under the law, under Section 17 of this law, now unclaimed property are properties that it is difficult to link it directly with the owner. For instance, if I have a property in Abuja or I have a property in Lagos, definitely my name will be attached to it. But if there is a property the EFCC feels there are some things in secrecy about the real owner of that property, the EFCC, by virtue of being a law enforcement agent, has the power under this law to go to court and then, of course, file an application ex parte in court. Now, that application, once the court grants that application, then after 14 days, the person that owns the property, if the property has an owner, the person who owns the property will come forward and says, look, this property is mine. It is not that it is not known. This is how I got my property. This is how I paid for it. This is how I became the owner. And then the EFCC will then know that this property is known by someone. And then definitely other processes of the law will follow. But if after a while they have filed that application and nobody comes out to claim that he is the owner of that property, by virtue of this law, the EFCC will then go back to that court for this order of forfeiture. So the question we should ask ourselves as Nigerians is that, as anybody, when the EFCC filed that ex parte application, as anybody or did anybody come out to say he is the owner of such properties? If I did not come out to say that I am the owner, don't forget that the law says an unclaimed property. It means that EFCC will not be the one to say that the property is owned by X, Y, Z. If by the virtue of the fact of the application first of all filed in court, if it has an owner, the owner should have come forward, to come and say that property is mine. The law does not empower EFCC or any law enforcement agent to specifically disclose the owner of that property by virtue of this law. But I understand the plight of Nigerians that, yes, for the essence, for the purpose of transparency, and because, like what the other speaker said, because of the kind of country we found ourselves, this seems like a very big news. And I understand that it is good to marry that property with an owner. But by virtue of what the law says, it is not a necessary requirement. And perhaps that was why EFCC did not even feel it to attach that property to a specific owner. Because what the law only says that they should file that application, which I believe they have done before they came out with this press statement. So the point I want to make is that,
can you hear me?
Yes, EFCC has done this.
Mr.
But the issue on ground is that,
Mr. Woyemi, if you can hear me. But in the case where court documents reveal that indeed in the affidavit entered into names of testifiers who have admitted transfer of proceeds to the clients that got monies for payment of these properties, and the names of those making the payments, in those cases where we have such court documents as evidence, does the EFCC still reserve the right to quote legalese, as Jeffrey has said, as action in rem, to conceal the identity of the property owner, where we have court documents stating to the contrary?
All right, thank you. Don't forget, like you said, that action in court is in rem. In rem means it is against that property itself, not against a person or the owner. So the issue on ground, the issue in court specifically is the property, not the owner of that property, because it's a very thin line. It's a very thin line, and that is why a lot of the people are talking, which is good, which is nice, which will make us to have a clearer objective of what EFCC actually is doing or wants to do. So that action specifically is against that property, like I said earlier on. But if there are documents or if there are names, like you rightly said, in court, that shows that that property belongs to X, Y, Z, or A, B, C, or E, F, D, two things are involved. Number one, don't forget that that property, I'm sure EFCC got into this particular situation because of their investigation. Okay, and once the names are in court and there is proof that the properties are owned by X, Y, Z, it is still not the duty of the EFCC to disclose that property. The court documents are public documents, for crying out loud. So if anybody has issued to say this property belongs to, and of course, it's already, it's in public domain. We are already seeing that they are saying that property belongs to some people, it belongs to some people. But the question, like I said earlier, is that those people, they have not come out to say the property belongs to them. And if a property does not belong to me, you cannot come out and say this property is mine. Perhaps I've even denied it under investigation. Because again, don't forget that the reason why we started this investigation in the first case is that the process of which I acquired that property is questionable. It's a process of crime is involved. Money is involved. And there are a couple of millions of dollars that are involved in this particular process. So when issues come,
because
it
of time,
is very likely that the owner has come to deny that he is the owner.
Let me come in here quickly because of time. You say in law that you cannot build or put something on nothing. So this forfeiture, this seizure, what have you, did not happen in isolation. All people are asking for is transparency and accountability. How did we get to this point? It didn't just drop naturally. The list the EFCC could have done, according to some people, is give us how we got here. So this forfeiture was made as a result of a case we instituted or a case we're pursuing against this person or these group of people or this company. That's all they're asking for, rather than just drop it on us without context. And I know you understand how important context is in law. And that's all people are asking for. Nobody's saying declare someone guilty or not, or say this person owns it. Let us know how we got here. We didn't just arrive here. But we'd like to expand the conversation, Mr. Olufola Awoyemi. We're joined by policy analyst right here in our Lagos studio, Mr. Superiala Mbere. You're welcome to the Morning Brief.
Nice to be here.
I know that you're quite active on social media, so you must have seen all of the back and forth on this. As a Nigerian who's been following the fight against corruption, particularly under the new leadership of the EFCC, by the way, a lot of people have commended for the approach. He's gotten flack as well. How do you place this particular forfeiture and the questions raised around it?
It's quite unfortunate that those in public office, have taken to this type of action. Public office is, you hold public office in trust for the people. Unfortunately, as you said, that these things didn't drop from heaven. People in the system had, access to public funds and used it to purchase these property. The asset forfeiture is, is commendable. And but at the end of the day, you cannot say that. I would refrain from saying that because documents have emerged. Yesterday, Shua, and Sahara reporters had some documents, court documents and filings. I'm not a lawyer, but at least that was the allegation of the EFCC, that the past central bank governor and his people had a hand in the property. But the company linked to the central bank governor has said they do not have a hand in the property. So I think the best thing, what the EFCC has done is to seize the property and bequeath it to the federal government, which is the only, it's the only thing they could have done, because I don't, someone is saying I don't own the property. So what then do? You have to okay, you don't own the property, let's have the federal. So it's a welcome development, the fact that that property has been handed, the court has finally forfeited the property to the Economic and Financial Crimes Commission and obviously to the federal government. But the conversation goes deeper than just forfeiture of assets. Now, we look at public office and public officers as those who are in a position to serve. But unfortunately, the situation we find ourselves in Nigeria at the moment is that public officers are there for themselves. It's a fundamental problem, and a fundamental problem that has, causative effect or causative, factors. And public office holders are Nigerians. When you speak to Nigerians, you ask, You know, most Nigerians, someone said on social media, someone said most Nigerians are not even against corruption. They're just angry they are not benefiting from it. So what is the ideology? What's the idea?
Is that backed by data? Is there a survey that was conducted and most Nigerians?
No, that's what I'm saying. I said someone said on social media.
Okay, so it's not backed.
It's not backed by data. But I'm saying it's the perception of the person that most Nigerians are not against corruption. They just want to benefit. So when they don't benefit, there's a problem. But the point is, people always wait when they get into office to steal. It didn't start now, but there's a fundamental problem. What is our idea of a society? What's our idea of public service? Is it to enrich ourselves or is it to serve the people? You know?
Membry, let's take it back to Josephine. Josephine, you know, I'm smiling because one of the reasons we're having this conversation is that it looks like there are different laws for different sets of people, for the haves and the haves not. And it's almost, I understand the legalese, and I think every educated person understands action in rem, action in personam, and what all the legalese says. But somebody bought, like I was saying, somebody paid for the land. A company was contracted to design those buildings. A company started building. We have GIS. We have the Nigerian state unable to find the owner of this property. See the sequence in which, you know, the process of getting land in Nigeria and eventually building to the point where we have it. And we can't find the owner. At least if somebody is saying, this is not my property. Okay, what about the guy that was contracted? Can't we find him to say, who gave you this contract? So, these are the things that Nigerians look at and like, are we playing? If this was a poor man, are we going to be having this conversation? Josephine, I need your response.
Oh, yes. Thank you. I was smiling when you were, talking because, that's the pure fact of the situation we have in Nigeria, where there are different laws for different people. And the question you ask is a very valid one. So if the owner is saying, I am not the owner, or the perceived owner is saying, I'm not the owner, then who are the people who are contracted to do this and who contracted them to do the work on the land? But, beyond that, we've also seen in Nigeria that when it comes to young people, you see EFCC, going all out and showing that they can actually get people and persecute them. We have seen cases of young people, including celebrities, that has also been sent to prison. We have Naira Marley's Lantern. Those people were sent to prison for being affiliated or for allegedly being charged with 11 count internet fraud. Yes, and they went to prison. The recent case of the cross-dresser, Bobrisky, they said he abused the Naira and he went to prison. Later on, we heard that he had to do, it's also affiliated with money laundering and all. But what was clear in the public domain was that this person abused the Naira. So this is not to justify crime, but we also need to get to a point where we begin to build patriotism through our accountability process. The continuous repetition of this selective justice is beginning to erode the trust that people have, especially young people in the system. And there's been the impact, we have been feeling the impact. In the past couple of days, months, we've had several uprisings in Nigeria. Yes, apart from the hunger, which is also part of the causes of the irresponsibilities of this fraudulent acts by the people we have trusted with our public treasury. Right? We have seen all of those uprisings, but part of it is because we have lost faith in our justice system. We're in an era where justice in Nigeria belongs to the highest bidder. And that's why people would confidently tell you to go to court if you are aggrieved about something. And the last case of election was a classical example. I was talking about Yaya Bello earlier. Yaya Bello, EFCC is claiming that Yaya Bello is in hiding. And Yaya Bello is saying, I am not hiding. He went as far as walking through the office headquarters of the EFCC, took a picture and video and posted on social media for us to see. He is further making caricature of the whole, system. So I think we have a lot to do in our accountability system, which also boils down to the justice system. No Nigeria, this is a slogan for me, that no Nigeria is more Nigerian than another Nigerian. And we have seen cases where it seems as though people in power are above the the law. So, and that's why we will continue to see repetition of cases where when it is the young people, then we can now charge them. EFCC gives them the placard, they take picture, and we see their faces everywhere. We see their names plastered everywhere. But now we cannot even identify the owner of this property. We want to see the name. We want to track. We want to be able to refer to this case to say, yes, EFCC ensured justice was served.
All right, and you know, it begs the question, you know, because funds were transferred to, you know, a developer began work. There should be an identifiable developer. There should be monies traceable to accounts. Speaking of which, should we begin to, and I'm bringing this to you, Mr. Soprella, in our studio, should we begin to take a second look, you know, at our financial systems to ensure that, as Jeffrey has said, you know, there are no laws for big people, and there are some certain laws for, you know, smaller people, quote and unquote. Because if you looked into the court documents, the accounts are traceable. There are people that are identifiable. If those court documents can be tenable to use to trace indeed who it is that has purchased this monies. And monies we're talking about are to the tune of 900 million naira, 2 billion naira, if you looked at the court documents. So should we take a second look yet again, relatedly, at our assets declaration law, particularly for politically exposed persons?
You know, the Code of Conduct Bureau is in charge of, you know, collating assets of public office holders, and this is part of the function of that body. And you're talking about, you made mention of the assets of public office holders being made public. The truth is that at the end of the day, when you're a public office holder, you are beholden to the public. Whatever you have as an asset or liability is no longer yours, but that's of the public in terms of the information, so that the public can make informed decisions. So it is plausible to say that there is a need for us to look at our laws in terms of, and also not just looking at our laws, but enforcement. Our problem in this country has never been with our laws, but enforcement. Those who are in charge of enforcing those laws. I want to believe, and I'm not the lawyer, we have a lawyer here, part of the panelists, but I want to believe that even citizens could bring legal action to, you know, to get to know who is behind all these transactions. The EFCC, now there's a clamor, who has these assets? People want to know. And you can't say, as Josephine made mention of the fact that there seems to be a law for the rich, and when I mean the rich, I'm talking of those who are politically exposed, and then there seems to be another law for those who do not have the political connection. And with that mindset, what do people do? They always want to get into public office not to serve, because apart from having access to public funds, public office is also seen as a way to hide assets, to sort of, you know, make use of the influence of the office to cover up nefarious activities or malfeasance, you know, before now, and that's before entering into office and whilst in office. So there's a need for us to not only tinker with our laws, but ensure that enforcement, you know, is put at the front burner, and also citizen engagement. You know, citizens should engage, you know, both as you've done, the media houses, but also by using the instrumentality of the law.
All right. Now that you talk about the law, let's go to Olufalawo. You talked about him earlier on, and wind down with your point, Olufalawo. I mean, a lot of people have been following cases in other parts of the world. Joseph mentioned the case of China State Tobacco Monopoly Company, which is like the country's regulator for tobacco. The former deputy head sentenced to death. A Vietnamese property tycoon also sentenced to death as a result of, you know, corruption, right? So is it a challenge with our laws? And let's begin to wind down. Is it the laws, the enforcement, or what exactly is it as we begin to wind down?
All right, thank you. Thank you very much. And I'm so happy about this question. I think the challenge is actually our justice system. The justice system, definitely in Nigeria, has a lot of challenges facing it. And some of the speakers over there have said it seems as if we have two different types of law, one for the rich and one for the poor. And sometimes it seems like that. And I will give you an example also of this same EFCC. For instance, you have seen EFCC several times taking up cases of the people they call Yahoo Yahoo boys. Okay? And in recent times, they come, they arrest them, and they end up in plea bargaining with these Yahoo Yahoo boys. And the EFCC will come forward and say now that they now have 10,000 convictions. They have 5,000 convictions. These are convictions based on plea bargaining, not based on trial. That's number one. Number two, we have also seen EFCC becoming a debt recovery agent. I'm owing you 100 million, I'm owing you 15 million, and the first point of call I will go to is the EFCC. And they will go ahead and arrest me and then take up actions against me. And we have several judicial authorities that have said that EFCC is not a debt recovery agent. Any law enforcement, EFCC, police, all of them, they are not debt recovery agents. And they go ahead, they arrest just for owing debt, just because the money involved is much.
All right, Mr.
All these things, all this goes ahead and distracts them from their primary responsibility, which is recovery of public funds. And that is what people are saying, that it seems to have two different types of law. It is because of the way the law is being implemented.
All right, Mr. Awayemi, that's a very good place to land on this particular thought. We don't have so much time anymore. We apologize. We know you have a lot to say. Olufalayo Awayemi, legal practitioner, Justice Development and Peace Commission, joining us from Ibadan via Zoom. Josephine Adoku, National Inspirator Trainer, Action Aid Nigeria, joining us from Abuja studio, as well as Soprala Membri, Policy Analyst right here in our Lagos studio. Gentlemen and lady, thank you so much for coming on the program.
Thank you very much for having us.
Thank you very much.
All right, we'll take a quick break. When we come back, our correspondent and anchor, businessman himself, Ladi Williams, will join us for trending with what is going on in the stock market as well as the financial sector. Join us again.
Hello and welcome to the Stock Market Report. Well, the All-Share Index concluded the second trading session of December near flat, just at 3 basis points down, about 31 points shaved off from the All-Share Index. Market cap still sitting at 59 trillion. We see the market mover today. Ardell Holdings PLC contributed to the drawdown, sitting about 2.25 trillion naira, losing that about 3 trillion. It started with closing at 471 naira per share. Then to the sectoral performance, we tracked, were mostly down today, with oil and gas, consumer goods down, just the financial services sector holding up 0.82%. Making yesterday's gain in the first trading day look like a dead cat bounce. And there you have it. We see the first trading day of December started off in the green, but the second trading day, we see a pullback there, about 0.03%. Nothing much. You could call it flat, but you know, when that positive trend doesn't continue, then we start to see investors a little jittery. They're expecting a Santa rally. Is it going to happen this December? But let's look at the top gainers now. Golden Guinea Brews topped the gainer shot about 10%. Then we have WAPCO. This one has been in the news for now, closing at 17.15 kobo, 9.95% up. We know what's happening with Lafarge Africa there. The majority shareholder, Holcim, there's a Swiss company, they're divesting out of this company. They're saying they want to concentrate on other markets at this time, and they're selling
to a Chinese company. They're also a cement maker, a top cement maker in China. That's Shua. And I've heard that company, they are top when it comes to cement making, and they know how to manage their cost of goods sold. So we might see some interesting action in the cement industry in Nigeria once this deal gets regulatory approval sometime in 2025. We'll see how maybe some kind of price war might play out in the market there. Let's look at the top losers from yesterday. Now we see Arido Holdings, that's one of the new kids on the block. A big drop there, 8.72%. That contributed to the drawdown that we saw in the market at the close yesterday. And we know Arido Holdings did list about 800 to 700 naira, depending on where you bought this stock at. But look at it now, 471 naira. But I'm sure investors are trying to understand, where is the bottom for Arido Holdings? If you bought at the top, definitely you might be a little jittery at this point. But we know what some investors say. The biggest investors, they say, buy when the market is fearful and sell when the market is excited. So there must be fear right there with Arido Holdings, 471 naira. Maybe we'll see some kind of bounce at some point, because the sell-offs, it did give great gains before listing on the NGX, started off on the NASD unlisted market, almost 2,000% profit to those who bought it before it listed on the NGX. So all eyes on Arido now, investors looking out for that bottom. The all-share index, year to date, still about 30% profit. And looking at inflation rates at about 33.88%, we see inflation is still outperforming the all-share index. But some stocks have definitely outperformed inflation. But I'll take it to you guys. Definitely, it's all about beating inflation at this point. Who's going to win this battle? When you look at all the asset classes at this point, because at the end of the day, we know what inflation is doing to our disposable income and what that's also doing to investments at this point. And so
I think that, Ladi, you made a vital point, and I just want to ask, does that mean that a lot of people are not investing as much anymore?
So the thing is, this market is now filled with domestic investors. You know, there was a time where the NGX was dominated by foreign investors, but we saw a retrace with that. But now we see domestic investors playing more in that market, contribute about 90% to the trades that we see in the domestic market. So it's not bad, you know, having the foreigners, you know, play in our market, but this time we're seeing domestic guys, you know, having all the fun.
Well, we'll keep our money local to make local money. Thank you, Ladi, for coming as always. That's why we have you, to bring us up to speed with the development as far as the market is concerned.
Ladi Williams beat inflation at some point.
I call him the investor. Ladi Williams, business anchor. Thank you so much for coming on the program. Guys, Bukola, Kayode, so are you investing anytime soon?
Yeah, I'm investing a lot of my time.
Have you bought at the NGX? You should buy at the NGX.
According to Ladi says we should invest, you know, when the market is aggressive, and, you know, recoup when the market is exciting. So I think we need to watch the space a whole lot more before we make up our mind.
Well, some are recording those bearish movements, so you can go and buy. So the numbers are there for you to go and pick. So there are penny stocks here, 8 naira, 3 naira. Just gather some good money. You may never know. 5 years from now.
You have to answer the same question.
Yeah.
We take it for granted, really. I think everybody has some sort of investment here and there. I think every rational person has some sort of investment. But you, Jeffrey, are you invested?
Yes, I have. I have shares. I have shares. Yes, I have shares in the market. Apparently, of course, I follow the market, so I have shares in the market.
So I listen to that.
I do both in Nigeria and outside Nigeria. So
that's what it should be. If you have some disposable income, let your money work for you, and that's what we're encouraging young people to do. It's okay.
It's even interesting that some of those shares have appreciated over 1,500% from like less than 2 years. I could see the number. So, but the big thing about this investment and buying equities and all of that, when you have the big money, so imagine you invested 500 million naira and it appreciated by even 10%. Do the math.
Yeah.
But if you're not a good risk taker, stay with the fixed income market.
So let your money work for you.
Okay.
What next do we have? Bukola?
We look at that emerging and disturbing trend, and how do we protect our girls against, you know, the menace of this trend. And what are we talking about? It's no other than, you know, this thing called the hookup culture, and as it affects, young persons who go out to parties and then they're declared missing. What is fueling it, and how can this be checked? Joining us to have this conversation this morning, we have Omolola Odutola, who is the Police Public Relations Officer, Ogun State, who joins us virtually. We also have Dorothy Njemanzi, a development expert and communication strategist, who joins us from our Abuja studio. Ladies, thank you so much for coming through for this conversation at this time. I'm going to start with the Police Public Relations Officer, Mrs. Odutola, who joins us via Zoom from Abeokuta, Ogun State. We see that, there's a lot of cases of ritual killings and, arrests and parade coming through, particularly from Ogun State. And we know that you're doing some work in that space. Before we get into the work that you're doing to address this, I want you to walk us through what the demographics are from the cases that the Ogun State Police Command is tackling. Demographics in terms of, the age range, gender of those who are caught, and then perhaps you also want to talk about the factors that seem to be fueling this upon your interaction with those who are arrested and paraded and perhaps prosecuted.
Thank you very much. I hope I'm audible. Thank you.
Go ahead.
The ritual killings that has been occurring in Ogun State of recent, I would like to say that it is not new, but as much as possible, the Ogun State Commissioner of Police, CP Alamutu Abiodun Mustafa, with the cooperation of other management team, so far has been able to tame this very ugly incident. And it stems from an ugly perspective from young persons who believe that ritual killing could enrich them. You have some of these unscrupulous elements who deceive them by saying that if you bring or if you get human skulls or human organs and they make some kind of concoctions for you, that those kind of concoctions, after using them in the prescribed mode, would eventually get them rich. And that is why we are having an advocacy and sensitization, trying to enlighten young persons to make them understand that engaging in ritual killings or ritual activities does not in any way make you rich. And this conversation also will go further by talking about the menaces and why young persons have decided to ally themselves with the get-rich syndrome by also involving in ritual killings. Am I audible?
Yes, you are.
Yes, exactly. So some of these things let's also look at you've spoken about the perpetrators of the crime and how they're deceiving young girls. What action is the government taking, at least for Ogun State, for instance, to begin to maybe rein in on some of these guys who are perpetrating this evil on one hand? On the other hand, what exactly is the authority telling these girls in terms of caution and all of this? Because it is not wrong to go to these parties that they are going to. But at the end of the day, some of the risks they take predisposes them to some of this danger that we're all worried about.
The Ogun State government, particularly the Commissioner for Women Affairs and Social Development, we work in tandem with the Ogun State Police Command at all times. We have also been able to provide a counseling section by the Women Affairs, the Commissioner for Women Affairs. Aside from that, whenever we have cases such as this, if peradventure maybe the girls are not maybe used for the rituals, we also have a proper way of helping them go through the distress that is in form of their mental health, the mental disorder, the anxiety that that they feel. These are part of what the Ogun State government partners with the Ogun State Police Command in doing. But when you're talking about the age ratios, we have the hookup cultures where you have females or young girls between the ages of 20 to about 32 years. You will find most of them in this age range. And the reasons why they get into these menaces or this hookup culture is not far-fetched. Some of them feel
oh dear. All right, we'll get back to the police public relations officer.
Their parents, and also the get-rich syndrome.
All right, just a moment. We lost you momentarily, but at least we got part of what you were saying. But quickly, let's speak with Dorothy Njemanze in our Abuja studio. And this conversation is happening smack in the middle of 16 days of activism against gender-based violence, the global campaign. And that's why we're bringing these issues to light. There is a responsibility of our society to protect our women and girls, and I imagine that's why you're wearing, that color. But speak to us about the trends you've seen quickly, and talk to us about what we're missing, really, as a society, maybe security agencies, as individuals as well, because it's everyone's, responsibility, really.
Thank you very much for having me on. Now, I'll go straight to what predation looks like, right? A lot of the predatory trends that we see have existed in society all along. And instead of tackling them head on, we make excuses. We apply the route of morality policing, and try to guilt trip people when harm happens to them. Look, you stay in your house, harm can happen to you. You go out, harm can happen to you. A lot of marriages, a very healthy amount of marriages in Nigeria happen through what? Hookup. Let's assume that the definition for hookup would be meeting somebody and eventually meeting up. However you meet up, whatever the terms of your meeting up are, is between you people, especially when you're adults. Now, my very big concern would be the fact that the predation system extends much to children. A lot of children are lured through the predation system. And so the onus lies on us. Lagos State has a mandatory reporting policy. It's important for every other place in Nigeria to have mandatory reporting policies so that, where suspicious movements are seen, they can be reported. They must be reported. And then for law enforcement, if people report things to you and then you're lax, or, you expect people to apply certain routes and write petitions before you're able to take actions, then there's a problem. The proactiveness of law enforcement, is something that we bank on. Just saying something online is reason enough for law enforcement to take action. One thing I know is clear. Between adults, there's a limit to what you can get involved in. If adults decide to come together, that's fine. However, bad people plan. They plan very well. They gain the trust of whoever they want to harm to minimize chances of you raising alarm for them to be caught. And so since we know this is how bad people operate, the next thing is, okay, in your dealings daily, I heard the police woman talk about people going to parties. And I also remember reading about the lady who was killed by somebody who was her pastor in church, So it could be anybody, whatever the dimension or whatever the out appearance that bad people choose to take or operate, the law enforcement should be, ready to swoop in and ensure that there is minimal to no damage that is done. And then the reporting culture, the mandatory reporting culture of society is one thing that can help to minimize these things. Now, since we cannot control what adults do amongst everything, we can at best profess security tips to everybody, because the hookup culture affects men as adversely as it affects women, but maybe the numbers may be more with women, considering the fact that there's more pressure on men to prove that they have resources that can make them look like what? Big boys, that's what they call them, right? So what can you do? Make sure as much as possible, wherever you go in, somebody knows where you're going, so that it's easy to hold people accountable, especially the ones that people tell you, do not mention that you came here. That's the one you should mention to at least 2 or 3 people. This is where I'm going to, why I'm going to, and how I'm going. It makes it easier to track people in case, the people people have decided to go astray. But the truth about it is that we can never tell at first instance, most times that people are going to harm us.
Just a moment. Let's take it back to Abeokuta, to the police PRO. So that for context, so that people understand the scale of what we're dealing with, maybe you provide us a bit of data. There's the idea of screaming loud that this culture is becoming, is actually affecting the young girls, and they are leading to their deaths in their numbers. So maybe give us a basic data as to 2024, what you have on your hands, so that we understand the scale of what we're dealing with. Because if we contextualize, people understand how serious this is.
Yes, this particular menace is very serious, and I would like a lot of young persons to understand the dangers of the hookup culture. Every day, that is today, take for instance, today, we have lots of reports of missing persons. These cases come in form of missing persons. And when we have a case of missing persons, by the time we begin with our investigation, not less than at least 10 ladies or 10 young ladies go missing on a daily basis. And by the time we begin our in-depth investigation, we come to discover that it is not just by accident. Most of these missing cases are connected through hookup channels, through hookup apps, where young women fall victims of persons or strangers who they don't know. They casually invite them to unknown places, and by so doing, they fall victim of being used for ritual purposes. So I can say that on a regular basis, from Ogun State Police Command, we receive not less than 10 cases or more of missing persons, and most missing persons are young ladies from Ogun State Police Command on a daily basis. So it calls for caution. It calls for serious cautioning from our parents. We have to start taking this seriously, and from our young persons, especially the young girls between the ages of 18 to 32 years. Do not, when you are leaving your homes, try as much as possible to have a second person or a third person informing them about your whereabouts. It won't just make any atom of sense to just move out without telling anybody. But because it is a hookup culture, where a platform where these young ladies meet strangers on hookup platforms, and by the time they invite them to strange places like a house or an unknown destination where they don't know, these young persons get used for ritual purposes.
All right. And that's quite worrying, because if you do the calculation, 10 times 30 is about 300. And if there are 31 days in a month, that's about 310 missing persons in a month. And I want to take it back to Ms. Njemanzi. You said some very significant things earlier on, that the predatory culture is everywhere. Anyone could get hurt anywhere, even without being hooked up and without, engaging in the hookup trend, but and that's quite true. But if you observe the trend of what is in today's context called hookup, it's about cases where, as the police public relations officer has said, they're invited to unknown places, and they go to these parties or these events. Doesn't it speak to our value system? And shouldn't parents and wards take more responsibility, for how these young persons, view life as well?
Okay, I'm surprised. I mean, the statistics reeled out were mostly 18 years and above, and those would be adults. So to what extent can parents monitor the activities of people who are 18 years and above? I think we should be realistic. I work in a survivor support center and in Abuja, and I see high numbers, very high numbers of people who keep luring children to unknown places, and they lure them through, the internet, they lure them physically and everything. These would all come under the hookup culture, if that's the thing. The truth about it is that while there are so many cases of, predation that are going on, there are also success stories, because strangers meet and they develop relationships. Now, the biggest the biggest currency that is exploited is that currency of trust. As a people, we trust a lot. We're a trusting society. And now we're just supposed to think about ways to interrogate the trust at different levels. As an adult, whatever it is, be a little more cautious, look out for red flags. So many times the hookup things that were said, people look and see, oh, this person has similar number of friends with me on certain apps, and so the person should not pose a risk. And so that trust that is brought to play is what is mostly exploited. With adults, there's a limit to what you can say. I mean, people should just be more vigilant. People should be more in tune with the realities of times in which we are. And then for the aspect of the get-rich-quick syndrome that people think is linked to this, I think the government needs to step in here. What do I mean by that? If there are more schemes available to people to empower them, not just when it's time for elections, we'll start saying how many people were empowered amongst other things. Now is the real time to empower people, so that pressure of wanting to to break the jinx of being in these hard times, would minimize. I think in so many cases where I have had direct instances to deal with people who are victims of this predatory culture, which is what I would call it, a lot of people have said, well, the pressure on me was too much. I needed to eat. I needed to do this. And from her side, it's also, oh, well, he promised me a few things. Well, I went out to eat food. I went out to eat to eat noodles or something of the sort. So the youths need to be more empowered.
Final thoughts on this, and I'll go to the spokesperson of the Ogun State Police Command. You gave us one half of the story, so let's get closure as we wind down in less than a minute. Out of the 10 reported missing daily, the girls, how many do you find eventually? Or are you saying that in a month, for example, there will be 300 plus and they'll remain unresolved? So please give us the closure to that so people understand this in context.
The closure to that is that, as people move from place to place, as people transport from place to place, we get hints, we get alerts that so and so persons are missing. But when it gets to as regards the hookup culture, I'm trying to say that this particular hookup culture we're talking about, it pertains mostly young persons who involve themselves in bonding, in relationships that has no commitment with strangers. Sometimes when we have cases of missing persons, after about 2 or 3 days, they get found. But I'm stressing this particular hookup cultures greatly get themselves on hookup platforms in order to make money. That is the get rich quick syndrome. That is what I'm talking about. Most of these hookup apps, most girls who find themselves in these hookup apps get missing. And the high consequences is that they are usually slaughtered for ritual purposes.
All right, that would be a fine place to leave this conversation, and we hope that lessons have been learned. But of course, it's an ongoing one, and we'll continue with it and see the results that we can get from this, hopefully positive ones. And we've been talking with Mrs. Omolola Odutola, the Police Public Relations Officer, Ogun State Command, who joined us virtually via Zoom. We've also been talking with Ms. Dorothy Njemazi. She's a development expert, communication strategist, who joins us from our Abuja studio. Thank you so much for your time, ladies.
All right, so from there, we'll switch gears now to touch base with our correspondent. We've always tried to do this as much as possible to bring you up to speed what's going on at the moment in real time. Deborah Agbalama is our correspondent in Port Harcourt. She'll be telling us what's been going on in that city. With the Port Harcourt refinery coming upstream, excuse me, and the PMS price, and how it's impacting transportation. Deborah? Deborah, if you can hear me, can you unmute your device so that we can get a feel of what you're saying? Okay, I guess Deborah is trying to sort out. Deborah, can you hear me now? Okay. All right, we'll go on a quick break. When we come back, we'll get to more conversation. Join us again. Welcome back. Now it's time to talk about that movie. His Royal Highness was supposed to be here yesterday, but we couldn't take him, and today we're taking him. Bukola?
Yes, indeed. So we have His Royal Highness joining us virtually. So first of all, let's welcome His Royal Highness Oba Adedapo Tejosho Oshile of Okiono, Egbaland. Good morning and welcome to the program, Your Royal Highness.
Good morning.
Thank you so much, sir. Thank you for holding on. And we do not only have His Royal Highness, also joining us in the studio, we have Reverend James Ademuyiwa, a cleric. Good morning and thank you for joining us.
Good morning.
And we also have Mrs. Dayo Olukayode, who is also...
Pastor Dayo Bero.
Yeah, Pastor Dayo Bero Olukayode. Yeah. Thank you for joining us on the program. So there's so much to talk about when it comes to the life of His Royal Highness. And I'm going to start with the Royal Highness. We've read a lot about your life, how you have defied the odds, to do things that are a departure from the traditional institution. Of course, we know about your commitment to evangelism and the spreading of the gospel. But beyond that, let's piggyback and do a bit of history, of course, also stemming from that movie that has been produced about your life. So there is that scene that tells us about how you practically prophesied your emergence as the king, the Oshile of Okiono, how what you said at that very critical moment extended the life of your progenitor, the former Oshile of Okiono, before you took on the throne at age 50. I want us to walk us through how, prophecy, was responsible for your emergence as, the king, the Oshile of Okiono, and how that has also shaped your life and your journey through your reign. Your Royal Highness. Okay, we'll try to rectify that. Let's bring it to the studio now. Let's talk about that movie, the Nehemiah Mission. So, what informed the production of that movie?
Well, I think I'll let Pastor Dayo respond to that, because she was the one that God used to give the message as a revelation to Kabiyesi to produce that movie.
Okay.
So there must be something that dropped in her spirit.
But just before you start, I understand Kabiyesi can hear us. Kabiyesi, you can go ahead. We understand you can hear us now before we come to our studio.
Yeah, I can hear you all right. Thank you.
Did you get a question, Kabiyesi, from my colleague?
No, I didn't.
Okay, so I'll piggyback on the question. I want us to walk us through how prophecy, shaped your emergence as the Oshile of Okiono, and how indeed it has also shaped your reign as, paramount ruler, who has also, held the throne for about 35 years. Yeah.
Sorry, I didn't hear the question.
Oh dear.
Oh dear.
All right. Let's bring it to you, Pastor Dayo. What informed the production of this movie?
Thank you very much. I started working. I met Oba Tejosho, Oba doctor, he's a medical doctor too. Oba Dr. Adedapo Tejosho, Oshile Okiono Egba. I think that should be around 70 years ago. And then we started working together. I mean, spiritual works, evangelism, and all that. So last year, we were supposed to have a program, Marathon Praise. But I was in a secluded place as I was preparing to go for the program. God told me to stop that. He had something to tell me that there will be a new project that He wants to use to bless His people through KBSA. So God told me that everything, all His divine intervention in His life, where I should put everything together in a movie and then show to the world that He wants people to know that He can use anybody He chooses to use, and that you have no excuse not to serve God, not to follow your heart, follow your conviction about what you believe in, especially when you believe in God, no matter the position you found yourself. So that was when the race started. I met with the king, and the rest is history.
All right, Kabiyesi, let's come back to you, because this movie is really about, it's a biopic, and why it's important to us is because we always talk about, we don't tell our stories enough, and so this is a fundamental story we're telling. So Kabiyesi, what we're trying to find out from you, maybe, and adding to my colleague's question, is how has it been being a Christian and being a monarch, given the way African culture sometimes in conflict with each other when it comes to Christianity and traditional practices?
It's gone off again.
Kabiyesi, can you hear me?
Well, partly I can hear part of what you've said, but
okay, Kabiyesi, I'm saying, how challenging is it to be a Christian and a monarch?
Well, it hasn't been very easy to be a Christian and a monarch, but if it's God ordained, there's nothing anybody can do about it. I had been created to be a Christian and a monarch. I'm expected to lead my people to God. You don't forget that God created us. And He created us for a particular purpose, just to watch and worship Him all through our lives, just like the elders are doing in heaven. But of course, you know that when Jesus Christ came to this world, He was persecuted, and He had warned us before He left that in this world we would face tribulations. But He has said we should not worry, because He has conquered the world. He who lives in me is greater than he who lives in the world. So, since I've had those assurances, I know that anything that comes my way, God is prepared to conquer it. I'm a conqueror. So, that doesn't frighten me at all. I've managed to wade through it, and I will continue to wade through it. And I hope that every one of us would turn to God. Because this is our problem in Nigeria today. We have abandoned our Creator, and He's now reacting towards us. But my prayer is that we will still go back to Him and ensure that we know that He created us for a purpose, and we would serve that purpose in Jesus' mighty name. Thank you.
Kabiyesi, I know you had mentioned that it's not been easy, and you've alluded to the fact that you were created by God and everybody needs to serve God. So, are there situations you found yourself practically that you want to share with us where you were clearly resisted by your subject when it comes to the conflict of quote-unquote interests between your faith and the practices of the culture and the throne you sit on?
Well, do not forget that we were individually made. And everybody in this world is created for a specific purpose. It's like we're playing a jigsaw. No two pieces are identical. So if you are created for a particular purpose, nobody can imitate you. And you cannot also imitate others. Otherwise, you would fail. I am created purposely for this. And I thank God that I've been doing it to the best of my ability. I thank God for the lives that my life had won for God. I suppose we would not appreciate this until we get back to heaven, when we get into our everlasting life, where there will be no more problems with anybody. So, my appeal to all and sundry that is watching me today is that we should know that without Christ, we are nothing. If you take the word Christian, you know how to spell Christian. Take the word Christian and remove Christ from it. You are left with the I-A-N, which means I am nothing. Without Christ, you can do absolutely nothing.
So,
my prayer is that we should all attain everlasting life in Jesus' name. Amen.
So, Kabesi, just before I bring you to the studio, what convinced you to take on this movie project? I think it's titled Nehemiah's Army Mission. What was it that you saw that made you to take on this project?
Well, I am a believer in God, and I believe His prophecy. If you want me to let you know why, the Bible says in Proverbs 29:18, where there is no prophecy, the people perish. And I don't want to perish. I had a divine message that God wanted me to get this film produced, and that God wanted to use it to save many lives, to win many lives to Himself. But of course, I am not known to disobey God's words. I believed in what God said, and I'm already seeing the results. Less than a few days that the thing was put on YouTube, I understand thousands of people have clicked onto it, and that's the purpose for which God wants it to serve. And it's just beginning to serve that purpose. You would see the result of this in a few months, a few years' time. Obedience to God is very, very, very important.
All right, Kabiyesi, just before we allow you, do you still carry out traditional practices? A lot of people want to know.
Well, you cannot serve God and mammon. You serve God. It is true, I am a traditional ruler, not only over Christians, but also Muslims, traditionalists, and every other religion. But still, I am supposed to be a leader. I don't want to be a blind leader. A blind leader leading blind people, they would all end up in the pit. But God has endowed me with His light. So I am a leader in the light, leading my people, some of whom are in the dark, into the kingdom of God.
All right. All right.
I'm in the light, so I cannot.
Thank you so much. I know you wanted to land on your top, but let's bring it to the studio, Bukola.
Yes, so let's talk about the movie for you, sir. What are the high points? And Kabiyesi has touched a bit about some of the lessons, but what are the other significant takeaways also from the movie?
For me, the high point from the movie is the concept of our faith. I was a little bit rattled watching the movie to see how a human being can stand the threat and opposition of certain sect of people. It was a very, very vigorous threat, strong ones, some involving threat to life. But he stood that due to his faith. And I saw how God gave him victory all through different phases in that movie. So the highlight for me is if you trust God and believe in Him and have faith in Him, you can stand the test of time and go through any battle of life.
So Kabiyesi's life is a departure from the norm in terms of what he stands for, what he believes in. For instance, he said that he can't serve God and serve Mammon. What can we learn from this, going forward in terms of the representation of our traditional institutions, and when some of the things that they do go against the faith that has been professed by the person that has been mandated by divinity to take the stool? Maybe you want to take it.
First of all, you must realize that whether you are a king, a governor, anybody, you have your life to live and you own that life up to God. And you should know that you are the only one that will stand accountable on the day of judgment in heaven before God to give account of how you live your life. So while leading the people, you should also lead yourself, spirit, soul, and body, before God. I think you should make sure that your faith and your God comes first before anything. And like the title of the movie is Adedapo, the Prince of Heaven. In Yoruba, we say Omoba Orun, because everything about his life, you can see that is divine. His ascension to the throne, the lifestyle, even the coming up of the movie, because I never thought of it. But God told me, do this, and this is what will happen. And we've had a lot of testimonies. By now, I think we should have over 90,000 viewers on the YouTube, which is a Nehemiah Army mission.
All right. Great lessons that we've learned from this experience and from the life of Kabiyesi. We must end this at this point, and thank you so much for your time. We've been talking with Reverend James Ademuyiwa, who is a cleric, and Pastor Dayo Bero Olukayode, who's also a cleric. And we've also had the honor of having a monarch join us to talk about his life, Oba Adedapo Tejushu. Thank you so much, Kabiyesi, for coming on the program as well. All right.
Thank you.
Thank you, sir. We'll also touch on Port Harcourt again to see if our correspondent is ready now. We understand Deborah is to report on the impact of petrol price and how it is affecting transportation as far as commuting is concerned for residents. Hello, Deborah.
Yeah, good morning, Bukola, Geoffrey, and Kayode. From Port Harcourt here. I'm at Ajib Junction, and you're aware that recently NNPC Port Harcourt Refinery did say that they are now fully functional to some capacity, and we're on the street to find out whether this functionality is affecting the cost of fuel. From when I checked this morning, before coming to this bus stop, it was selling, some stations were selling for 1,075 naira. Some are selling as high as 1,150. However, this is somehow lower than what used to be before the refinery started operation. So prior to that, the filling stations were selling for 1,007 at least, and the lowest, you have some selling for 1,500, 1,550. So I have with me here a passenger or a commuter to speak to me on whether this cost of fuel is affecting him and whether he has felt any impact since NMPC began operation. Good morning, sir.
Good morning.
Look this way, sir. What's your name?
Mr. O'Connor.
Your name is what?
Mr. O'Connor.
Mr. O'Connor. Okay.
That direction because
okay. So tell us how the reopening of NMPC affected you. Can you say anything
impact? Transport has actually going by the common fare. Probably any positive impact.
So how much are you paying now for transportation?
Actually, from my base at UAE, right down to my track at the 400 naira. Even up to my city, not even, and at a reduction of 1 naira.
Okay. Do you buy share for any reason?
Normally, I buy almost everything.
Okay, so how much do you buy for? This way, sir.
Sometimes I sell it, and a lot of it is 8,200.
Okay. So before the economic issues arose, what was the fair difference from what you were paying now and what you were paying before?
800 naira difference.
800 naira difference.
Because we're about at 800 naira before the commencement of the administration, and it is skyrocketed to 1,000 naira.
How does this affect your daily life, your expenses, especially as a retiree? How does it affect you? How do you cope?
We have to make a little adjustment. My children, I believe that the younger ones, one or two that are still in secondary school, just one in secondary school. First, normally come to carry them, but now we use transport, and some other time, even the money we normally expenses on cooking and all that, we have to adjust a little, make some little adjustment. So we don't have fun because we fight.
So your cost of living compared to before, what is the percentage?
Over 80% increase.
Your cost of living, and your income has not changed.
Deborah, our correspondent there, Deborah Agbalama, bringing us up to speed on the impact of the cost of transportation on commuters, particularly with expectations that things would change following the coming up of stream of the Port Harcourt refinery. Thank you so much, Deborah Agbalama, for your reporting. From there, we move on to something also very exciting, and Kadi has that to unveil for us.
Oh, absolutely, Bukola. We have joining us on the show this morning in my little entertainment corner, the lady whom you see in that video with Orisha Femi. Her real name, Mariam Winifred Shoaibu, but you know her as Shua, and she's right here with us today on the Morning Brief. Ladies and gentlemen, Shua, good morning.
Top of the morning.
Come
Boom.
on.
Bad girl pan the studio, mash up the mic, bust up the place. Hey, what's up, people? Shua is in the hizzle.
So I need to come up with mine as well.
Come on.
What's up, everybody? K right here in the entertainment corner with Shua.
Come on.
You said something about the hizzle.
Oh, yeah. You
is
know
that for me as well?
Of course, of course, of course.
How are you?
I'm anointed, thank you. How are you feeling?
That is new. I'm great as
Cheers.
well. I must commend your range, your vocal range, right? A lot of people see you and they expect a certain, vocal, register.
Right.
But then you shock them, you come lower, right? Like, you know what? I can go all the way. So
I feel you.
You are a singer, you're a rapper, you're a writer. Are you a pianist as well?
Oh, yeah, in the making.
There you go. So what is your kind of music? As I said, your vocal register is quite different. So what is your kind of music? What do you bring on board?
Right. To that compliment, I have to say thank you.
You're welcome.
Yeah, I appreciate that you appreciate it. Yeah. I mean, innately, I feel like hip-hop is in my DNA.
Right.
But as you evolve musically, you start to, I don't know, peel off layers. of your talent. And then I've discovered that I'm a very soulful singer. Yeah, I sing like country music style. And because of my voice dexterity, I find that my audience is really drawn to when I do the dancehall music.
Right,
you feel what I'm saying? Like the Jamaican sound, patois. I do that as well. And, you know, I'm African, man. I got to make my people dance. So I'm very heavy on the Afro beats, too.
Fantastic. And I think that's great. Versatility is the name of the game.
Right.
But speak to us about your journey so far. How did you get into this? You went to school. You studied accounting, am I correct? And then you are accounting music, right?
You got this on lock, man. You got this on lock.
So how did that happen, really?
Okay, first off, I think I would say music really started for me in my second year in the university, and I have a very spontaneous mind. So I got bored of the routine that was supposed to be entertaining me, if that makes any sense. I mean, as youngins, after exams and we're free, you get to see people want to go clubbing or partying or whatever, but I was just tired of that routine. I needed something else, whatever it would be, as long as it's constructive and not destructive, just to keep my mind busy. And I've just found myself scribbling lyrics down. And my friends walked into the room one day, and I had written on like foolscap sheets and stuff like that. And they're like, May, so there's an assignment you didn't tell us of. I'm like, what assignment? These are lyrics, man. And then they pip it. And to them, I feel it looked way too professional to be coming from someone who had never professionally done music. And they're like, nah, I was dubbing it off the internet. So when I wrote more in front of them, they literally pulled me into the studio and boom, I'm here, musician.
Wow, thanks to those friends. You need friends like that who can support you and push you into what you want to be. So getting into the industry, a lot of people have stories, right? Some get signed to a record label and it ends in tears, or breakfast as the case may be. Some get to mix with the right people and that helps them pivot. Some say, you know what, I've seen other people's stories and I'm going this alone. Right. What has been your journey so far? What route did you take and how is it working out for you?
Well, I want to start from how it's working out for me. It's going better than I envisaged, quite honestly.
Nice.
And if you even ask me what I envisaged, I would say I don't even know what that is, because I realized that life could always be life, and you just need to keep a very open mind so you can accept whatever comes to you. As for the route I've taken the family route. I'm very family oriented. I've been in music over a decade now, and my mother has been my manager. She happens to be a deputy director with one of the very reputable stations in the country, and she has a very, apt knowledge of what entertainment is like. I just really understand the fact that it runs in the family, because it's like, okay, you've never managed an artist before, but you do this, like, in a way, I feel like you wrote your own formula. You feel what I'm saying? And there's a sense of safety it gives me, I mean, when you know you're dealing in-house, long story short, you just know what you're dealing with, so to speak. And
I think fantastic. Jackpot you just hit right there. Because you find out that a lot of people in the arts, even sports, once they have their family, their father, mother as a manager, they tend to do well. So on the one hand, the person is protecting your interests when it comes to music or business, and also morals as well. So mommy can be mommy. I say, don't do that, right?
The industry call her the momager.
Oh, momager.
You see what they did there? Yeah.
That's nice. Yeah. But I'm interested in what you have in store in coming days, right? As you said, you're creating your own kind with versatility, your kind of music. Right. What should we expect from you? What do you have right now? What are you dealing right now in terms of music right now in 2025?
You sound like somebody attending to the table in Las Vegas. What are you dealing?
It's because I'm interviewing you, right?
Come on, I'm feeling you. So, man, I feel excited because it's about to be a very, very amazing ride. I've been cooking up some fresh stuff, you feel what I'm saying? And I feel like I should give you a taste of what it sounds like, because I mean it's been a bit of a hot minute that I dropped music, and I know my audience is, should I use the French, bloodthirsty for some new stuff, you feel what I'm saying? And what I've been doing is I've just been delving into other parts of my creativity. I recently became an author. I wrote a book, although I'm about to publish, and I did get an endorsement from a Nigerian government agency. They're called NNMDA, Nigeria Natural Medicine. Yeah. Aside that, I got into acting earlier this year, and as God may have it, I starred in this movie, and the movie came out and hit #1 in the Nigerian movie ratings and Nollywood movies ratings.
Fantastic. So there's a lot to you.
Quite a lot.
We need to get a taste of your music. We have about 30 seconds.
Right.
This is what we do. We're going to tease them and then direct them to your streaming platforms or where your music is so they can listen. So what is your favorite? That's a tricky one. What do you want to do for us?
Okay, so let me just do whatever comes to my mind. I mean, I have a lot of unreleased stuff, so I'll just do this. For my downfall, for my friend, for my paddy, I'll be there. 247 to back with me, mama down, I'll be there. Look, when my friend's in need, I'm a friend indeed. Ooh. I believe we all trees, so I plant these seeds. Yeah, I plant these seeds, I do it through my deeds. I would never know you're hungry and refuse to feed. As long as I can, be rest assured that I would. I believe we're here on earth to help how we could. I love to check on you, ask if you good. Truthfully, I do it for you and cause it feels real good. You feel what I'm saying?
I feel what you're saying. Ladies and gentlemen, make sure live and direct. This is not recorded. This is just what it is. Thank you so much.
Straight up.
For sharing your talent, for being you, for being unique. We look forward to the great things you'll do.
Cheers.
So hit us when you've got more stuff to deal with.
For sure. So you can follow me up on social media, Shua Official, no space. That's MAYSHUA Official. You feel what I'm saying?
There you go.
Your girl, baby.
Thank you so much, Shua. I'm going to join my guys right now, but we'll catch up right after this.
Cheers.
So, Jeffrey.
Yeah.
Bukola.
Yeah.
I mean,
that was quite.
Did you feel that?
A hizzle. So welcome back to
what did
Shizzle.
you say?
I love
the show. We don't frizzle.
I love the energy and the tone, the strength of our tone. It's quite rich and heavy. All right, that's all we can take. And that's all we can take on the program. Thank you so much for your time and company. I'm Jeffrey Uzama. Bye-bye.
I'm Bukola Koka. We'll be back tomorrow.
What is this? I can't get over that. Well, I'm Karaoke Kilo. Sunrise Daily is next. Have a great day and stay with Channels Television.